Hello and welcome to day 2 of Spiritual Goal, Reclaiming Your Trauma. And just want to reiterate from the disclaimer that we're not talking like medical trauma or whatever you might find. I think it's the DS9 or whatever the medical text, and it's this trauma and we're going into PTSD and this traumatic event. We're not doing that. It's these moments of trauma, which is like kind of this, like part of your being got stuck holding this emotion, holding this event to protect you. And we're going back to reclaim that, right? So we're looking for these moments of trauma, and we're using your emotions as the signpost. We're not using our memory. We're not using this event and the story that we made up of like, this happened and I'm mad about this and this occurred and right? We're not using that. Like that would be more like a therapeutic approach. We're not doing a therapeutic approach. This isn't therapy. This is an energetic, more spiritual approach, right? And we did yesterday, and you could take a week for that too. It's fine to ease into this because there's still a lot of spiritual work happening. So if you want to take day 1 as a week, day 2 as a week, day 3 as a week, that's fine. But this week, or this day I should say, is we're going to be like kind of honing it, kind of like honing like a laser. Like yesterday was kind of more like a broad like spotlight of like just boom. All right, negative emotions, let's see if there's a moment of trauma, a root to that. And now we're going to hone into specific emotions to see if we can because you might have you never really got in touch with the negative emotions that were happening. It kind of just seemed vague. Or I wasn't really coming up with much. I just didn't notice. I was so used to just having them. I wasn't able to catch them in the moment. Or you just caught a whole bunch and it was a little overwhelming. You might be somewhere in that spectrum where it was just none or too many. And now we're going to hone in to help make it where it's okay, all the colors, let's hone into a color, a single color, green. And let's see if what that can help deepen this process to reclaim the spiritual goal and build that communication with our unconscious to where we're saying, yeah, I'm ready to start pulling this back in. I'm ready to start integrating this back, increasing my spiritual energy, which will create change. And so if, because we're talking about pulling this traumatic events, and if you have a hard time dealing with change, then that therapy, when we said before, therapy is a great thing that helps you deal with the change, because this is a very change process, because it's bringing so much more spiritual energy in that you're going to start having change in your life, which is the whole point. But if you have a hard time managing change, that's a perfect place where therapy can help you through this. It's not therapy, this isn't therapy, but you could have therapy as with it and be with your therapist or doctor, whichever, hey, I'm going to be doing this spiritual practice. It's not medical stuff, but help me along manage what comes out of that if you have a challenge with that. So anyway, we're going to go into it. So the first emotion we're going to target today is going to be mad, right? So we're going to see just where were you mad? And you can think mad, angry, upset, but we're always going to keep rolling it back to mad, because it's a very basic emotion, which is more something like a kid would have of they get mad, right? And then we go to anger, and then we soften it to, oh, I'm upset, and then we soften it more to peeved or something like that. We're just going to think mad, and you can use those other softeners just to see when, if you don't have anything, well, I was never really mad, I don't do mad, right? Okay, well then where were you peeved? Where was oh, oh, my Starbucks didn't come enough time. It took too long, right? So just think of that, okay, let's see that. That happened, okay, when was that? And just see if there's a root of did that happen in a previous time? Is there a moment of trauma underneath that? You can ask that. Is there a moment of trauma underneath that? And you kind of might get a light of reading of oh yeah, wait, maybe there was a moment of trauma underneath that. And then get the age range of okay, was that 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 31, 32, oh wait, okay, 32, and you get a read of oh yeah, there was a moment of trauma, and you just do that moment of trauma at age 32, I full reclaim at my highest good. And just pull that and let that come in, right? Then we can also do say, is there a connected moment of trauma? Because they can kind of stack together. You might be able to get you just pick out one from your day, from your moment, from your feelings in the day to be oh, I'm gonna get a couple more. Say, is there another one connected to that? And you see if you get a reading, okay. Then you'd be and you can do it's really cool, because when you start getting this ability to do reads, you can then be really directive at that. You can go through the same process of 0 to 10, but you could be you just did 32 and be okay, is it above that? Is it later? You're oh, so 32. So I'm okay, 32, 33, 34, 35. I got it was a 37, it jumped right there. But you might get that. You might get oh, it's 37. Then you can jump to 37. Hey, at 37, you get a feeling of it. It's okay, all those moments of trauma at age 37, I full reclaim in my highest good. letting them come in. And you might get, and it's kind of like a stack, like it can stack up, where I got like an intuitive sense, okay, 42, right? And that might happen. Or you can just say, if you still feel like, okay, is there more moments of trauma connected to this? You might get a yes, and you can say, is it higher or lower, right? And if it gets higher, then you can start climbing up the age ranges. But let's say it was 42, you got the intuitive sense too. And you're like, okay, all the moments of trauma connected at age 42, I full reclaim in my highest good. Letting that come in. You just notice the energy's moving. You don't know what it is, not like specific of what it has to do. You're just noticing it kicking off, and the warp gate's going to keep on running. And if it gets a little intense, you're like, oh, it's a little tense. Just like, you know, run at 1/2 power, and then you can stop there too, because this is really big energy work, just because you're dealing with kind of like parts of your spirit coming back in, which then once they come back in, you can take on a whole lot more, which then you can start changing some stuff that you weren't looking at before, and that could start going, like your spirit saying like, hey, I got some extra power, I'm gonna work on this. So know that these can be like a small number of clearings, like, and they really can like open a whole bunch to where you might do 2 or 3 and be like, okay, I think I'm getting an intuitive sense to like, okay, I'm just good for now, right? Okay, all right, that was enough for today, or that's enough for this moment. Then you can check back in a couple moments, a couple hours or 4 hours, be like, okay, I'm ready to start doing it again. Or then another, you know, get another outburst of anger or outburst of being mad. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do mad. Notice I had a little bit of mad. If you're in the moment and like you're not able to take like time to like deal with it, just know, okay, I was mad at 2 o'clock. You get your time and you be like, okay, let's go back to 2 o'clock when I was mad. Okay, was there a time? Like, you know, a moment of trauma. Like, is there a previous moment of trauma connected to this, right? And you just get, okay, 2 cents. And you might get like, okay, 0 to 10. And you get, oh no, it isn't 0 to 10, 6, 7. You're like, oh, 7. Okay, at 7. So all the moments of trauma at age 7 connected to this emotion, all those moments of trauma, it's all intuitive, like how you're thinking about, like that's what's directing the energy, but you can say those words, just giving you a couple that whichever resonate the most with you. Like, okay, at age 7, I full reclaim in my highest good. Pulling it in, and you just feel it coming in. If it gets tense, like, oh, run at 1/2 power, run at 1/10 power. You don't want it to be like a traumatic thing. You're like, no, it's not supposed to be traumatic. Just, you know, it's calm. We're increasing our level of calm. Then we say, are there any moments of trauma connected to this? And you might get like right away, get the number of like age 15, right? But if you haven't tuned up yet, that's fine. You're going to be building that skill of like, notice like, okay, at first I just don't get anything. You can just try. You know, you just be like, hey, was it above or below? And just guess. So like, hey, from 7 to 0. And you might get, oh, nothing. Okay, maybe there was above then. That's fine. It's like, okay, I'm tuning up. Okay, 7 to 15. You might get, I got something, right? And then it was like 7, 8, 9, 10, you know? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, okay, something at 15. So then that moment of trauma at age 15, or that moments of trauma at age 15, I full reclaim in my highest good. And you just notice that coming in, notice that you're taking action, making this happen with the warp gates. Also, if it's intense, you just slow them down. But no, we're gonna use that for today of just like looking for times when you get mad. And it can be, you can also go back in time when you had moments of mad and pull those in. If nothing's happened in the day that got you mad or a couple of days ago, try to stay as close to right now as possible at first. But if you don't have something and there's something in the past, try not to don't necessarily go into a traumatic event, like a specific traumatic event, because it's just so intermingled and there's such a story on it. It's looped back so many times. It's hard to see what just that emotion was, just what that emotion was pointing to. Eventually those will probably start unwinding, but you want to first just pick your especially because it's in the current moment. The main thing is we want to get in present time, because that's what kind of unwinds it all, is actually to be here in the now moment and not always referencing the past. So as close to the present moment as you can get, but then knowing you can go back, because we're just playing here now. We're just experiencing it, like, can we track back using an emotion to find these previous moments of trauma and then bring us, you know, more freedom in our life. So that was day 2. Join me for day 3. And until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.